So in today's cloud gaming video, Stadia gets two new games that have been announced. A lawsuit is emerging against Stadia and it has to do with resolutions. We also have a few updates on a couple of games on Stadia, as well as an update on a Rainbow Six Siege game that we are all waiting for to come to Stadia. And finally, Amazon Luna has made a huge change to their business model, and it has me in shock, and not for a good reason at all. All that in this action-packed video, guys. Subscribe to always be up to date with cloud gaming news, as 50% of you guys watching are still not yet subscribed to the fastest growing Stadia and cloud gaming channel in all of YouTube. But with that, we recently got word of two narrative-driven indie games headed to Stadia. Both are coming soon, starting with the newest game called A Place for the Unwilling. Now, in this game, you only have 21 days until the city dies. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. You'll be deciding what to explore, who you meet, and every single decision you end up making will offer branching narratives that can change the course of the outcome of your ending. The game features some really cool stuff. For instance, there's no combat at all, no mini-maps, no quest markers, or even puzzles. The game's pretty relaxed in that sense, and the story is the focus here, and it also features 100 narrative-based events on decisions that will make each playthrough a unique story. I'm actually intrigued by this title, and I will be giving it a go when it does launch here soon on Stadia. The other title here is Welcome to Elk. It's a biographical adventure set on an island. You play as Frigg, a young carpenter trading their life in the city for an apprenticeship in a small town, but you end up quickly finding out that this town of the Elk is not really what it looks like. This is yet another very heavily story-focused game. What I found kind of neat about this game is that all the stories in this game are actually based on real-life versions of those stories, so that kind of makes it pretty unique in that sense. Welcome to Elk is also set to come pretty soon. With that, we're going to go ahead and pivot to yet another headache of a headline. Stadia potentially facing a class action lawsuit. This was filed back in October of 2020, and it just recently appeared publicly by classaction.org, as the suit has moved up to the New York federal court. It states that Google greatly exaggerated the streaming quality and display resolution and sought to juice up its subscriber numbers this way. Now, this has a lot to do when Stadia first launched, and the performance for the games that had launched at that time were not true 4K 60 FPS like Google had been touting in ads. Obviously, this was one of the many blunders Stadia had when it first launched, and I for one had been pointing that out back when Stadia first released on this channel. But as you guys know, games like Destiny 2 have been used an example for this lawsuit, and we know that game was rushed. It was done quickly to port over onto Stadia, and it didn't deliver the true 4K experience at launch. Now, looking forward to today, a lot more games are truly at 4K, and it's not quite the experience that it once was when it launched at first. Now it's greatly improved all around. Another quote here from this lawsuit states that Google has done nothing to correct the false information concerning the power and resolution of the games available on Stadia, and does not disclose to consumers in the Google Stadia store the resolution of each of the games available for purchase. And the last thing to note here is, if somehow this lawsuit did manage to go through, it would seek damages for those who purchased a Stadia's Founder Edition, Premier Edition, or paid for the Pro subscription. With that, guys, I'm simply but a humble YouTuber who games and follows the game industry revolving cloud gaming, so I'm not really going to pretend that I know a whole lot here and that this holds much weight and it's something that could be feasible and has a chance in court. But from what I'm gathering, this doesn't look like it has much of a chance. You can cite many examples of paying for certain types of resolution for certain games on consoles or PC games, but if you break it down, a lot of the times the games don't actually come what they have previously stated they could. I mean, this has happened a ton of times in the last 10 years. Not only that, but a lot of this is on the developers as well, just not getting it done. As we know, many games are capable of true 4K on Stadia. We've seen it. Another thing to know is when Stadia launched, a lot of the games were actually being touted as up to 4K, not actually going to be at 4K. And honestly, guys, a lot of companies like Nintendo, PlayStation, they get sued for all sorts of stuff all the time. You see it with the drifting of the Joy-Cons, and I'm sure PlayStation's about to get sued here for the exact same issue. At this point, for me, this was barely a story that I honestly didn't even want to cover, but a lot of you guys have been asking me, so here it is. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on what you guys think this could potentially mean honestly, for me, it's got nothing, really nothing. So we'll see what happens. If something updates here, I'll let you guys know. All right, with that, we have a couple of updates on a few games that I'm going to get through here quickly. First, we have Baldurs Gate 3 releasing the Druid class here soon, as well as some quality of life improvements. Things like simplifying how you heal your party just by clicking on some portraits. Another one here is letting players flee from battle when they know they're going to lose. Torches being easier to use, and then reworking cutscenes and cinematics, as well as improved lighting all around. The Druid class, for the record, looks pretty dang neat, with the ability to turn into all sorts of different beasts and do all sorts of different cool stuff. This patch should be coming to Stadia here in some weeks. Moving on, we have Marvel Avengers. This one's getting a big story expansion. It will be featuring Hawkeye and is set to launch March 18th. I think the rate at which the heroes have been getting launched for this game hasn't been quite as fast as I was hoping, but it's good to see this overall, and he does bring some much needed balance to the game, as apparently he can heal, and I think he just does that by shooting a big arrow, and a big circle will then let all the other players heal. And I think when this launches next month, I'm definitely gonna finally go back and give this one a shot, as I really haven't played a lot since launch. The last thing that I want to cover in regards to game updates is now Rainbow Six Quarantine has come out of the hiding now, showing up on a PlayStation Day 1 patch, and it has uncovered some information regarding the name change the game is set to undergo, as Quarantine obviously is not the best name to have these days. The placeholder name at the moment, though, is Rainbow Six Parasite. According to Ubisoft, though, that is not going to be the final name, but so far they even have images for it. Obviously, this is a game that's not officially announced for Stadia or even Luna, but hopefully we get to see it on both services, especially since Luna's case, they already have Rainbow Six Siege, and then of course Stadia Siege has been rated for Stadia, and we've been waiting for that eventual release, so I'm hoping that it shows up on both. Quarantine or Parasite, whatever this game ends up being called, still unfortunately doesn't have a release date, so I'm hoping that we do hear about that here pretty soon. All right, the last thing we're going to go over in this video has to be something that really shocked me yesterday with Amazon Luna. It was showcasing the DLC from Metro Exodus being purchasable on the service. The huge problem here, though, is what is stated right below that purchase screen that says if your subscription lapses or the game is no longer available in Luna, you will not be able to access this add-on. Holy crap. Well, that is just no good, guys. Luna has always stated that games can rotate in and out of the service, which has always been one of the few problems I do have with Luna, because you could lose your save games and your progress if the games get rotated out. But to amplify the problem and make it worse, now you can purchase extra content, but if the game leaves the service, you're gonna lose what you bought. This unfortunately is no good, and actually leaves me pretty worried about future new games on Luna. What I hope that this purchasable DLC means going forward is that they are actually looking to include a model where you can actually outright buy games even if they leave the service, and you can still play the game plus the DLC that you bought. And for all we know, that could be exactly where this is headed, and they are just giving the option for the DLC for now. What's interesting is we're also seeing that pivot with Xbox, where Phil Spencer mentioned that they eventually will include the ability to buy games for xCloud. Hopefully this is just a sign of things to come positively for Luna, but I have to say I don't recommend a single soul buying in any sort of this DLC right now until this gets figured out and maybe there's a bit more clarity. I'm definitely going to give you guys an update, and hopefully we hear something soon on this. Alright guys, with that, let me know your thoughts on today's video. What do you guys think of the Stadia lawsuit, the Stadia new games coming, Rainbow Six Parasite? Are you guys hoping for that to come to Stadia or Luna? And finally, your thoughts on the purchasable Luna DLC. Guys, make sure you're always subscribed on this channel. Hit that red button to always be up to date. Like I said, only half of you guys are subscribed. Like, share, hit that notification bell. As always, I'm Sunny, and I'll see you guys in the cloud.